Is K-swapping the answer? Let's find out. So we're gonna run through some things. I've heard a lot of stuff on the internet, like everybody has. Everybody has opinions. You know, what a K-swap costs, how much power does it make? Is it the best engine swap ever? Probably. I think I've had enough experience at this point that it's worth sitting down and having a discussion about what my opinions are and what I've heard from the other friends of mine who have also K-swapped their Miatas. So the first thing to understand is, if you are planning to K-swap, what is your goal with the car? If you are road racing, check the rules. Obviously, you can essentially engine swap in any road racing group. It just puts you in different classes or gives you different penalties. The K24Z3 was designed to use a stock subframe, which for things like grid life, you need to retain the stock subframe in order to race in things like, I believe it's Club TR. You can do the A2 swap. It just puts you up in a different class because you need to use a different subframe, so you're against faster cars, and then, you know, the budget starts to really spiral out of control. So understand your classing rules and understand your goals with the car. If you are doing a street car, same rules apply, just different kind of field. If you want NA power, throw the budget out the window and just do the A2 swap. There is excellent aftermarket support. There's companies like 4-Piston Racing, Hybrid Racing, all sorts of those, K-tuned. They make a lot of good parts for the A2 that help bump your power up. Drag Cartel, you can get 250, 300 wheel horsepower NA out of a K24A series. The K24Z, on the other hand, has little to no aftermarket support, which is kind of a shame. There's no cams for it. Companies are just starting to do some head work. The integrated exhaust manifold really restricts the power. This car, when it was NA, made 200 horsepower on a pretty aggressive tune on a Mustang dyno and like 170 foot-pounds of torque, I think. It felt like a Rotrex supercharged 1.6 Miata. In my opinion, if you're gonna do this swap, just Rotrex your Miata. Delete that part. If you want a boosted car and you want a reliable 400-500 horsepower, K24Z3 is the option. With the integrated head, it's really easy, and I'm not just saying this because it's my turbo manifold. It's very easy to boost these cars. The packaging is super tight. The turbo manifold would fit in the palm of my hand, and it's a really nice solution. The manifold is bulletproof. The car has been bulletproof. K-Miata's been doing track day after track day, and all they've had to do is gas and brakes. I haven't taken the bottom end apart, but I've been talking to David from K-Power, and the rods are thicker than the K24A series. It's because this engine was actually the same one that the Turbo Civics run, and they're making over 500 wheel, I believe, on their track car. So, boosted street car, this, NA street car, K24A. That's really the nitty gritty of it. So the next part we want to talk about is the big question that I don't think my wife understands now. The thing that everybody seems to get pretty wrong, it's the cost. You can go to K-Miata's website or K-Power Industries website, and you can buy the ultimate swap kit for, I think it's like $4,900 or $5,000. That's not the cost of the swap. That is the cost of all of the parts that you would need to make in order for the swap kit to fit, plus some extras here and there. In reality, you still have to buy an engine, you still have to buy an ECU, a wiring harness, clutch and pressure plate, and a bunch of other parts just to make it work. My swap NA, so last year, we'll put a link to that build series up here. Last year, the swap ran me, I want to say, around $12,000 by the time it was all said and done. I went a little overboard. I had a baller custom exhaust made by Rockfab. You can source the exhaust from K-Miata. It's a little cheaper. You can build your own. You can use a stock Miata exhaust. I know my buddy Rob is using a really restrictive 2¼ inch exhaust. Pie cuts for life, Rob. I replaced every sensor on my engine because I wanted to be reliable, which it has absolutely been turnkey reliable, but we'll get to that in a minute. Anywhere I've heard lowest 8K. I'm sure there's people like Josh Owens who have spent 20K on their NA K-swaps. Realistically, 10 to 12K is a safe number, safe estimate. The cost difference between the K24A and the K24Z is really only $1,000 to $2,000. It's the cost of the subframe for V8 Roadsters. It's a nice tubular piece. but it does add a level of cost. And I wouldn't say complexity. I think it opens the engine bay up a little bit better. In the end, last year I wished I had gone NA because I wanted that 250 horsepower NA momentum car. Not that I regret this, but it's definitely different than what I had anticipated, which is if I had driven one, I would have understood what I wanted ahead of time. If you can, get a ride in somebody's swapped car before you swap your car. It's the best advice I think I can give. If you're local to Rochester and you want to ride and it's not snowing out, I will take you for a ride in the boosted car. Sadly, there is no NA K-swap here. It'll give you a sense. Obviously, this is going to be boatloads of fun, but to some people it's too much. Dylan doesn't want 400 horsepower, and he knows that. So yeah, get a ride if you can. The third thing we want to cover is the difficulty of the swap. A lot of people look at engine swaps and they're like, oh man, how'd you get that in there? How'd you make that work? K-Power, the whole kit is there. Everything, the instructions, the wiring harness, you can buy everything. And in theory, you could do the swap in a matter of, if you took a whole week off of work, you could probably do it in a week. Really, it's super doable. There's no custom fab required. If you buy, you can buy literally everything. So don't be afraid to do the swap. It's, if you can pull an engine, you can do a K-swap. It's really not that hard. It's not much more than that. The wiring harness is plug and play. The ECUs are plug and play. Everything is there. There's a huge support network. If you ever have any questions, literally anybody is willing to help you. I'm willing to help if anybody has questions. Great network of people. K-Power is super responsive. So it is an easy swap. The fourth thing I want to cover is what's it like to own and drive the K-swap. I have had really zero issues with the swap, besides some clutch problems, which Miata has since resolved. The engine, it's been turnkey. I mean, we've had less problems with this thing, I think, than we have with Dylan's turbo swap. So I get in it every morning. I've been driving it to work all summer. We drove it to Tennessee and back with zero issues. The car was bulletproof, took a beating all week while we were there at Miata's at the Gap. And I drove it home, and it's great. All I've done is put oil in it, a couple oil changes, some gas, and some brakes, and that's it. I just get in it. I drive it to work at 5 a.m., and I drive it home at 3 p.m. So it's been super drivable, super reliable, super cheap to own once it is swapped. But, I was impressed. I thought it was going to be something that I'm bending over every weekend in the garage, trying to fix something here and there. If I am, it's just my own tinkering that I want to make things better. But out of the box, super reliable kit. The last thing is, would I recommend it and or would I do this again? I would do it again if I wanted to attain 400 horsepower. If I could go back right now, like I said earlier, the first thing I would do is drive somebody else's, drive somewhere and find somebody who has a K-swap that they're willing to let me drive. I would probably have gone with the A2 swap and built some 300 horsepower NA car. It would have been different. I wouldn't have had the torque of a turbo or anything like that, but I think it would have been more my original style of car that I had intended to build. Do I recommend it? I pretty much tell everybody to K-swap their Miata, so yes. I think it's great. If you have the budget for it, it's a wonderful solution for a high horsepower, reliable Miata. If I blow this engine up, hopefully I don't ever, but it's $400 to $1,000 for a new one from a junkyard, and that's all this is. It's a totally stock block with a Type S oil pump, and then you throw it in the car and you're good to go. So for those of you guys wanting to make high horsepower, absolutely 100% recommend. It's a super reliable, super cost-effective way to grenade your motor. That being said, I do love my NA BPs and I love my turbo BPs. So if cost is not an option, NA K-swap is 100% the solution, I believe. If high horsepower is the goal, turbo K-swap 100%, because you're going to spend less on a turbo K-swap than you are building a reliable turbo BP motor. If you just want a 150 horsepower street car, track car, whatever, I don't think it's the answer. It's a lot of money for something that is overkill for the beginner driver or somebody who just wants a easy, cheap, reliable, low horsepower track car. That's exactly why we're building the track car with a BP motor. It's going to be 140, 150 wheel, and it will be everything. It'll be excellent, reliable, bulletproof, easy to work on. So that wraps us back up to number one. Know what you want to do with the car. that tells you if it's worth it. I would do it again, not just for the clout, obviously, but I would do it again for just the experience. It's been great. The people that I've just met along the way, I've made some good friends locally. I've made some good friends across the world that who knows if I'll ever meet. Hopefully I do, but I've talked with tons of people on Instagram, Facebook, texting, whatnot. Made some hopefully lifelong friends through it, and really bumped my own personal experience and skill way up just working on this and building this car. So yeah, with that, that's a wrap. Leave a comment down below what your thoughts are on K-swaps. What swaps do you want to do in your car? And, as usual, like and subscribe. Yeah, get a ride if you can.
As that goes by real fast.